I think that big government conservatism was an oxymoron, and I think pushing more spending, greater deficits really damaged the brand for the Republicans and conservatives across the country.
I would agree with that and also say lack of communication.
Michael?
I think the prosecution of the war, I think the plans of the war and actually how it was implemented were two different things, and I think that we failed in the way originally that we were prosecuting the war.
Failure to communicate on the war, Katrina, the bailout. Yeah, we'll stop there.
Okay.
I'll go a little further back, and certainly this is our president. We all worked hard to get him elected. But I'll tell you, picking the issues early on, the Social Security debate and the immigration debate, and those were two that tore our party apart at certain times and cost us electorally. And those were things that not we disagree or agree, because those were solutions the American public was looking for from Republicans that we could not deliver that answer.
Okay. Fifth question was a popular question. Joe Sehusen, who worked with the Ron Paul campaign, asks, in light of the success of Ron Paul and the Campaign for Liberty attracting large numbers of activists to the Ron Paul campaign and to conservative causes, what have you done to reach out to Ron Paul voters, and what will you do as chairman to make sure that the Ron Paul voters remain or become Republican voters? I would add a number of people sent in similar questions that made the case that Ron Paul supporters were sometimes made to feel not terribly welcome when they showed up at Republican conventions and events. Michael Steele to start.
Well, I think that's the important point right there. How do we then begin to embrace those who were in this game with us all along? Ron Paul certainly brought a whole new generation of voters, and I think it's important going forward that we recognize the strengths and the attributes of these individuals who are out there actively building the party and building a movement, a consensus, if you will, on certain issues. So we can't look that in the eye and say, no, we don't want that. We need to find ways, creative ways, to work with their candidates that are running, to work with Ron Paul himself as a member of the United States Congress, and tap into those synergies where we are on the same page and can move forward together. Will there be disagreements? Probably. But that's part of this process of building and branding and moving forward. We cannot look at folks and say, well, you don't check off my litmus test of choices, and therefore I don't want any part of you. I think at this stage for this party, everyone who can help us should be brought into the room to help us.
Okay. As the party of Abraham Lincoln that grew on building coalitions, we too often have practiced the politics of subtraction and not addition. I witnessed early on the Ron Paul Army in South Carolina, early presidential party primary. And I want people involved in my party that will hang off bridges and paint on their cars and make up T-shirts. There was a passion that I saw of those people for him and his ideas. Do we agree with all of them? No. But we're a party that has to embrace differences. And we become the party of addition. We start winning races, whether it be the city council races or the water commissioner races. But passion is what brought me to this party. Passion to win, passion to talk about things that were right, and talk in a tone that people understand and will embrace. Again, enthusiasm, you just can't have too much of it in a Republican Party.
Ken.
The corporate model, the model that's been used by the RNC now for decades, has outlived its usefulness. We are a federation which invites differences. Differences don't have to be deficits. And Ronald Reagan's principle of someone who agrees with me 80% of the time is my friend, not my enemy. We have to build coalitions, and we have to do this by really, like I said before, flattening the RNC, pushing responsibility and decision-making and resources outside of the Beltway. The RNC can no longer be a social club. It must be the flagship Republican organization in this nation, and I'm ready to give the leadership that will make that conversion.
I think this is not unlike 1988. You know, we had a very contentious primary with Bush, Kemp, and Robertson, and I happen to be one of the Kemp guys that was stuck in the middle when you took a look at what came to our party. Is we brought in a lot of new people, a lot of what is today referred to as a Christian right from the Robertson coalition. And those people who stayed made our party stronger, better, and bigger. And I think the same thing is going to be true with the Ron Paul people. And specifically the question was, what do we do to reach out to them? I mean, I've actually gone out and met with their groups. I've gone to their picnics. I've gone and addressed the activists and said, be part of this. How do you become a precinct delegate? How do you run for county office and be a party officer? How do you become a delegate to the national convention? And I think it's an educational process because there is a lot of misunderstanding out there. I think you treat them like anybody else. If they want to be part of the Republican Party, if they want to participate, we have to welcome them in. And in Michigan, we have seen them being at the county convention level, at the state convention level, and showing up and participating, even sitting in on state committee meetings now. We have people actually come in just to listen, to learn, to be part of it. And if we welcome them with respect and with open arms, it will help grow our party.
I got to spend a lot of time with the Ron Paul people, obviously, in the early parts of the presidential campaign, and then we actually shared office space on the same building in our Iowa offices, and they're exactly right. Lots of energy, lots of passion, inspired by a personality, brought a lot of people into that campaign. And that's what we've got to understand as a party, that we need all the voices from that campaign if we're truly going to be successful. And, Dr. Paul, and I got to spend some time with him. We actually were in the same hotel for a couple of months. He is a wonderful man with wonderful ideas. Do we agree with him 100% of the time? Absolutely not. I've been involved in politics for 16 years. I've only found one politician I agree with 100% of the time, and that's me. Everybody else I'm going to have some disagreements with. And that's okay. And if we're going to truly be the majority party, then we've got to have room for disagreements and have room for conversations, but we've got to capture the energy of all those campaigns in the primary if we're going to be successful.
Mike.
My friend Lee Atwater, who was chairman of the party, used to talk about the party of the big tent. I believe that we are a party of addition. I think we've got to bring people in. The question was, what have you personally done? I personally have met with Dr. Paul on 2 different occasions. I talked to him about a list exchange where we could get his people involved, where we could communicate with them. I personally have treated his leaders of his campaign with respect. I've met with them. I personally treated his foot soldiers with respect, whether it was in our convention in Kentucky or whether it was the Republican National Convention in Minneapolis, St. Paul. That's the way we have to treat people and bring people in. I've been in this for a long time. Over the 40 years that I've been very active in politics, I've seen a lot of people come into our party. And you know what? We're better off for it. We have a lot of people who came in with very charismatic people over the years, and they're here and they make our party better today.
Thank you. We also had hundreds of votes for a series of questions on how icky do you think the Federal Reserve System is. We're going to stipulate for purposes of this debate that it's completely annoying, and move on to Mario Lopez, the president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund, who has a question. Mario.
Thank you, Grover. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My name is Mario Lopez. I'm president of the Hispanic Leadership Fund. It's an advocacy organization dedicated to communicating conservative public policy solutions